this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Let's talk about RingRx, our latest sponsor. RingRx is a high-quality, HIPAA-compliant telephone, text, and fax communications platform. They provide seamless, cost-effective communications for behavioral therapists, medical practices, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. RingRx is designed for modern healthcare environments. They offer customizable features like a phone app, automated patient outreach, voicemail, after-hours call routing, and top-quality desk phones. Try RingRx for free today at ringrx.com. And if you sign up using the code CLIMB, you'll get 15% off your monthly bill forever. Conditions apply.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. So we are in the third season of this show, and I was just sharing with our guests how I feel like every episode is extremely timely, and it's so incredible to have a platform like this where I can bring people on the show that I admire and that I have been able to connect with and then share them with all of you. So that is our guest today. So Arilda Surridge, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here, Julia. Really appreciate your invitation.
I'm really looking forward to learning more about you. So I just came back from one of your incredible therapist retreats in Bali, Indonesia, and it was truly life-changing. And so I think having the opportunity to go with other mental health professionals, having it organized by someone like you, knowing that there was going to be an educational component and that there were going to be some excursions that were already planned, definitely made it a lot less intimidating to go to a completely different country, continent, experience a different culture. And I'm really grateful that you do what you do. So share with the audience how these retreats came to be.
Yes, of course. Well, first of all, how did they come to be? So I've always liked the retreat format, and actually I started doing couples retreats first, and that idea actually came from a client of mine that was like, hey, it'd be really great if we could go as a group with other couples to a whole nother destination and learn that way. And so that planted the seed, and that was somewhat a little bit before the pandemic happened. And then the pandemic happened, and I had to put everything on hold, any new ideas that I had. But as soon as things started feeling safer and more stable in regards to the pandemic, I was like, I'm going to try my first retreat. And that was successful. So my first experiences were over in Mexico, and that's where my comfort zone was. That's what was familiar for me. And me having family in Mexico and also my husband. So I was like, it's going to work. And so I had 3 successful couples retreats over in Mexico, but I still felt like some things were lacking for me. Like it was filling my cup, but not that much. So I was like, I want to teach other therapists too. And so I've already been a clinical supervisor for years. I've also provided consultations for other therapists and or for EMDRIA, those wanting to seek EMDRIA certification since I'm an EMDR therapist. And so I was already doing that. So I was teaching, virtually or in person. And I was like, I want to become a continuing education provider. So I looked up that process, but I just didn't want to teach online or create trainings. I was like, how can I get creative with being a continuing education provider once I got that approved for myself and for my practice? And so I was like, how about some therapist retreats here where I'm able to provide the continuing education credits in a unique destination where everyone would love, and be able to also retreat themselves, because us as mental health clinicians, it's just so difficult and hard, and we don't even realize that sometimes when we're burnt out or we're drained or exhausted from our clients. And so or sometimes we do realize it, but regardless, it's been such a pleasure just to be able to host these retreats and bring people together, regardless of where they're at in their career, how they're feeling with where they're at right now in their career, and just providing that space for everyone.
So before you organized retreats for therapists, had you been on a retreat for therapists that was organized by someone else?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I started learning about them afterwards. So, I mean, I've been to retreats myself, but just more self care, but not therapist retreats. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think, yeah, I mean, and I think there's a lot of other great ones out there. I had heard of summits going on,
Yeah.
right, where they provide a training like in Hawaii, for example, or other really cool destinations. And I even considered actually going to a Gottman training a long time ago because I'm Gottman couples train,
Yeah.
and it was going to be in Hawaii, and I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds wonderful. But that's all I had heard about,
Mhm.
but not this retreat format
Yeah.
that where I provide everything so that when people arrive, they really don't have to take care of much, and I just try to handle all of that for them. And always cross my fingers that it'll be a great experience. So far, it has been. I'm not gonna say it's been smooth, especially traveling internationally. It's never smooth whether you're traveling individually or as a group. Um, but for the most part, people have been happy, and it's so
Yeah.
nice to see that people from past retreats continue signing up for like the future retreats.
Well, I can speak from personal experience, and I have to give you some credit that I definitely, having had my own experience, and especially international, adds a layer of complexity. The number of people that were there, they were coming from all different places. It was the first time that I believe you had been to that resort. And so we're navigating a lot of moving parts. You always maintained composure, you were responsive, we were on WhatsApp, and you would make sure that everybody was accounted for, or that there was follow through or follow up. So you definitely have a knack for this. But I'm also thinking about all that goes on behind the scenes, the planning, the financial aspect, seeing it through, maybe a little bit of recovery time after an event like this, which I'm sure can also be very filling your cup, but also draining in some ways. So I'd love to hear about your reflection on the retreats that you've done so far and those components, maybe those pieces that we wouldn't typically think about that are crucial in order for it to be successful. How's that part been?
Yeah, so I definitely take time to recover after each retreat,
Good.
especially this Bali one. That one was far, like, and the jet lag just added to like the recovery process. I was like not sleeping well, just and still needing to process and tend to people's emails, right, that were coming in. But I kind of like what the retreat's purpose, right? So me providing these retreats, I have to remind myself like, hey, like whatever you're trying to teach other people to do, you have to like do to yourself. And so what I have learned through, let me see, so far I've done 5 retreats,
Mm-hmm.
um, therapist retreats, and they've all been awesome and very special in their own way. And I've connected with a lot of the people on them, is that they really appreciate that I communicate, right? So I try. So even though I was exhausted after Bali, for example, and people wanted to know about their CE certificates, I would just gently respond, say, like, I'm still trying to recover, or I'm still not sleeping well. I'm not in the right headspace to be able to help you with this, but I will get back to you in the next week or so, right? So people really appreciated, right, that genuineness about myself and how I'm not just like always on the go, go, go.
Right.
And that's okay. Like I still demonstrate like this human side, even like in retreats. I'm just very, I think I'm down to earth, right? I'm just very casual. I don't walk around with like a crown on my head, like I'm the one that organizes and I'm the leader. I kind of like to blend in with with the crowd, and I also participate in the activities that are being offered as well. So that's one thing that I think is a unique skill, and which keeps me also grounded during the retreats too, to be able to do whatever else the attendees are doing also.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you're also very approachable, which I think is an important characteristic for someone that's in a position like that, because there does have to be a certain level of trust. I mean, for me, not having met you beforehand, and even though there were virtual opportunities for us to come together, to go to a new place with people that you have not met, you want to have that level of confidence that that person knows what they're doing and has everything organized, and you absolutely did. So the destinations of the retreat so far have been where? And there have been a couple of repeats in there, right?
Right. So I did Panama. Panama was the very first one, and I'm gonna repeat that one next. Are we in April? We are in April, so in 2 months. So that was coming up in June. So I'm very excited to go there, and I feel less anxious and stressed because it's familiar, right? So it's a
Absolutely.
familiar place. And I also did Peru twice, because when I first opened up signups for Peru, that one filled up quickly, and people were like, wait, but we want to go. So then I opened up a second week for Peru, and so I was glad that I was able to provide that. And then, so it has been four. So Bali was my fourth one, not my fifth one. So four. And so now I'm going on my fifth, and then I have a few more
Mm-hmm.
moving forward.
So what leads you to choose the destination? So Mexico was known to you and where you were comfortable. What led to the other places that you've been so far?
What led to them? Um, Initially, honestly, it's just me researching the Panama place. I never imagined myself in Panama. I had never been there in my life, and it was not a bucket list item. So the way that I found it, though, is I'm not an Instagram person at all, but I was on Instagram and I saw like these beautiful photos come up of like these accommodations, and it said like private island resort. I was like, oh, that's like really cool, and I was like, maybe I just like need to dig further. And I think the only reason why I started getting those pop-ups on Instagram was because I was researching retreats, Googling. So anyways, the way that works, it's a weird world to me, but regardless, worked well during that time. So then I reached out to this resort, and still like I was skeptical. I was like, is this even like a real place? Like I hope like it's not some fake place. And then they end up taking out, whatever. I just hear horror
Right.
stories.
Something could go wrong.
Yeah, but everything turned out great. Like I spoke to the resort, I read reviews. The head person there was wonderful. And so that's one thing that I do make sure to do. So with any new destinations, the way that I choose them, like it might be just like generally a country that I choose, like Bali, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke to quite a few resorts, but the resort that I spoke to and picked was the ones that seem more about connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely still continue to feel that when we arrived, and so that's so important to me. Just like people want to be able to connect with me when they sign up for the retreats, I want to be able to connect with these people. And even though they're so far away, you can sense that, right? So you can sense if they're more like business related. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But there's like more businessy type of accommodations, and that's not what I'm seeking for like my retreats. So those people that are able to give me more than just like the business connection, that's who I end up going with.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like other destinations that I've chosen, like Peru or and let me see what else is coming up, South Africa or
Just chilling,
Greece or
right?
Iceland. And there's Chile next year as well, and Italy, and I forgot what else. But those are some of the ones coming up. But those destinations I either chose because I know somebody there. So I have one of my good or best friends lives in Greece currently. So she's been helping me with organizing that. She even like reached out to like the VIA that will be hosting the group there. Um, Other places, I took a poll at some point, like where people would be interested in traveling to. So that's on my Facebook group, and so I also get feedback from other people on like, hey, like this destination would be outstanding to go to. Obviously, as much as I'd like to travel the world within a year, I can't. So I still have thoughts of what I'm going to do, but I mean, they're like thoughts for like 2027 or even 2028 at this
Mhm.
point.
Okay, so you're not slowing down. That's a good thing.
No,
So I have to ask, I mean, there's so many things that come up for me, but like as a fellow group practice owner, I mean, you still see a caseload, right?
I do.
And you provide trainings and you have all of these specialties and certifications and having a family. How are you able to juggle all of this? So I'm sure if it's a repeat destination, you've done a lot of the research, you've established the relationships. I mean, you have a Facebook group, so I'm sure that helps with marketing. So once you get some of these things in motion, I wouldn't assume that it's easy by any means, but things start to flow. But when you're in the beginning stage and you decide this is something that you want to do and you're researching and you are trying to put a lot of this in place, how are you managing that in addition to everything else?
It is a lot. I mean, just I always feel like I'm not doing enough, right? But it definitely is a lot. If someone else were to tell me like this is what I'm doing, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like how are you even holding up? Honestly, it really is about how I structure my day. I do have now I'm taking really full opportunity that my both of my kids, even though they're young, they're both in school, which is great. So during school hours, which is 8 a.m. till I usually go pick them up around 4,
Mhm.
it's just like either seeing clients, or if I'm not seeing clients, I'm working on a new project or responding to emails. So it's very structured because come once my kids get home, there's just no way. I mean, I can send a random message, just responding back to messages that I get on my phone, but that's about it. Because I also like I pride myself, right, or I strive to be a good parent as well,
Mhm.
and to be as available to my family. So I'm very much connected to them in the evening,
Yeah.
but I'll say that I'm trying to get better. Like even when they go to sleep, I try to disconnect from whether it's my computer or cell phone, and just so I can get some me time. And this is gonna sound silly, but I really also treasure my sleep. Right,
Yeah.
so that's how I am able to like just regenerate myself for like the busyness of the next day. I
Mhm.
do sleep. Usually, my sleep hours are from like 9 p.m., maybe 9:30 at times, and I'm usually up by like 5, and I wake up with a cup of coffee and
Mhm.
by myself. Usually my house is silent at 5 in the morning, but that's like my start of the day. So just having that mindfulness,
Mhm.
and that's usually my routine Monday through Friday. And I think that, I mean, and aside from just other self-care stuff, like whether it's like walking, I mean, exercise has not been on the top of my list most recently. I have to get back on it, but like every human being, we struggle in some areas.
The
But
weather is obviously going to be changing and the summer coming up with the kids. So, yeah, a lot of it is seasons. But I mean, the key things that I'm hearing you say are prioritizing sleep and considering self care. I'm sure help to set you up for success in those hours when you are the most productive and you are on when it comes to work. Sounds like you try to have really good boundaries and make your evenings your family time and shut off the other things so that you can be fully on when you are. So that's really helpful. I guess the other thing that I think about is for those that are listening. So in my consulting business, I help clinicians primarily now with expanding to a team and diversifying income streams. And I feel like diversification has been a really hot topic. People that especially are trained as mental health professionals, they see clients maybe for one-on-one counseling for a period of time. And then it gets to a point where they might start to consider other ways to utilize that skill set or to generate some income that isn't necessarily just providing counseling. And so now that you have successfully completed these retreats, you have several others in the works, and you are balancing all of it, what are the biggest things that you would suggest to someone who is listening, who has considered something like this, that have helped these retreats be so successful? There's a lot of interest. There are, repeat destinations. There is, obviously, even when we were at the retreat, just like the level of engagement, not only in participants, but speakers. And so I'm very interested to hear, reflecting back, what has helped make this part of your work life so successful.
Yeah, I think what holds back people, especially within our field, to get creative and do new things
Mm-hmm.
is kind of that fear or anxiety about the what if, right? There's like uncertainty to any new project. I didn't know where, if my retreats were going to fill up initially. I was scared. And so I think with any new project, it's about just trying it and seeing how it goes. Otherwise, you will always have that idea and be stuck with the idea, and then a lot of time will pass and the idea never happens, and so you'll feel bad. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's part of my character, though. Like, I once I get an idea, I just go. I So far my ideas have been good, but my husband, it scares my husband. My husband's also a therapist, and we share a wall, so he's on the other wall right there. But he's more, like about stability and security, right? And just seeing clients, and that's easy and simple. Not easy, but it's just, Monday through Friday, very, there's certainty with that. But
Yes.
for me, I'm like, I love working with my clients. And so I don't want to remove that at all. But I also like to provide consultation, clinical supervision. But my mind is always thinking about the next new thing. And that's like the beauty of our profession. Like, I think a lot of people forget that it's not just about seeing clients. You can do so much within the field. And I think people just need to talk to people. I think a lot of people, especially in private practice, just kind of like are to themselves, and they don't network with many other therapists, right? And so once they start learning about what other possibilities there are, they're like, oh my gosh, like, I need to do that. And so what is my recommendations? If you have an idea, just like I tell my clients too, just start planning out the idea. Yeah, you can't just jump into it, right? Like the next day, but you got to start somewhere, even if it's just writing it out and brainstorming. And if you have somebody else to do that too with, great. But if you don't, just starting it yourself, and then you start meeting new people. And like, that's been the beauty about this, right? Just kind of me getting to know people in these retreats. I really value the people that also want to like train or speak in the future, like you are. I'm so excited that you're going to be going to Bali again, but as a presenter and a speaker, and I look forward to that. And so I'd like to be able to provide that those types of opportunities too, like for especially people that really valued attending my any of my past retreats. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think the connections are long term. I'm still in connection with my retreat attendees from Panama, and I know that they continue to be connected. And it's just beautiful to see that some of them are going to be in Bali next year. A couple of them are in Greece and in Peru. So I'm
Oh.
so excited about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, so once you get the ball rolling down the hill, I can see how it becomes easier. You have a method, you're seeing it be successful. But to generate the interest, to develop those relationships in the beginning, to select your initial group of speakers, I mean, planning time. So, like, if you were to think back to the first retreat or just in general, what time frame would you give to someone who wanted to plan a retreat, to give them kind of a guideline of how long in advance it would need to be planned, any of the marketing tips that were helpful to spread the word, generate interest, get them full? What would you say to those pieces?
Yeah, so I would say, um, That's a hard question because I think so usually I'd say at least 6 months in advance. I The reason I've been planning out so far in advance though is because the ones for this year are sold out already, and so next year they're mostly sold out. So I have things scheduled like all the way in November next year, for example. So that's way over a year in advance. So at minimum 6 months though. Otherwise, I don't think it's enough time to get the word out, to market, to network, right? But quite honestly, I don't think people ask me like, how are you feeling your retreats? And I don't have the answer. I don't know, because people could be doing all the correct things and for some reason they're not feeling the retreats. And I try to support their process too. So I'm about connections and supporting others. And I'm not sure if you've noticed, but on my Facebook group, I will post other people's like events and or services, right? Helping to like boost them. But I think ultimately it comes down to the connections that I've made, the experiences that I have provided, and just the word of mouth, right? Because a lot of people are also coming, not only are they repeat attendees, but they're like, oh, I heard about your retreat and I want to experience one. And so that's also very beautiful to be seeing. I don't know if that answered your question. Like,
That
I
definitely
haven't.
I mean, I think there obviously has to be a market for what it is you're providing. So I think the components that make yours so appealing are the destinations. So for those of us that want to travel, especially mental health practitioners. And I also think the idea that all of the legwork is done for you. So, I mean, you buy your ticket and you purchase your airfare and you show up. And I think that that's really appealing. I think the other piece is CEs and knowing that this is something that could be an expense in your business for, balancing out travel and continuing education and advancing in your career and networking and meeting people. So, I mean, it is a really beautiful blend if somebody has the interest of traveling. But I also know what a commitment that is and the expense and how intimidating it can be for some people to go to somewhere that they've never been with a whole new group of people. So it doesn't sound like there's necessarily been a specific method for you, but whatever marketing you have done and then providing such a positive experience has helped spread the word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the networking that I have done has mostly, or marketing has mostly been on Facebook groups.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, and that's it. I love connecting with like great people. I think those great people are, help. Kind of like I'm supporting the other people that are having like their events. I think people are happily sharing like what I'm offering, and it's just been
Yeah.
great. I'm thinking like, I have a few people like reach out like, hey, do you have a course on teaching people how to start these retreats? No, I don't. And then they also ask if I can provide like consultation. And I'll be honest, like I say no to those too. And the reason why is because I don't feel like I clearly know the answer to their questions, right? I'm just kind of like doing my own thing. And for me to say like, oh yes, like my way is the correct way, I don't feel good about doing that because how am I going to teach something that I'm not really sure about yet? So there you
Well,
go.
maybe
So
come in time. But I mean, especially as you're starting to notice some patterns and some telltale things that are working and you can recreate it, then yeah, I can see. I mean, the teacher and supervisor in you definitely has a course around this in there somewhere.
mhm. But
Oh,
I love sharing. But I do love sharing. Like you asking these questions, it makes me think. Like, okay,
yeah.
like yeah, I'll share whatever I know, and I'm always sharing that information. But to have a structured course, I don't have it.
Okay. So as far as the number of people for each retreat, so what determines how many people and the way that you structure your time while you're there? So were you coming up from the perspective of how you would want a retreat to be? Was that through feedback that you got? Is that based on the destination and the resort itself? Like in terms of how you structure each of them and the number of people, what helps determine that?
So what helps determine that, I like to have a mix of destinations and accommodations and how many people will be there. So Bali for sure was the biggest, and that's the biggest I'll go. Um, so, but for me, like that idea was like that came up because I want to have at least one time a year where I do have like it was about 50, close to 50 clinicians there, but where I'm able to have more than just one or two trainers, and I thought it would be fun and more interest, people would be more interested in having a lot of different speakers and presentations. But with the other ones, they're a bit more intimate. For example, Panama, it's only going to be a total of 22 therapists. Greece is going to be, I think it's a total of 14 therapists. Same with Peru. So those are more intimate and I guess they don't feel as, they're not big. But the interesting part about Bali was that even though it was big, I saw a lot of people still like in their own groups, but those
Yeah.
groups were changing all the time. So it's not like people connected and just stuck with the same group. It's like every single day they were, anyways, with different groups. But
Yeah.
how do I determine? Yeah, but I don't know how I determine the what that would look like. But I think the majority, I do like to have them be between 14 to 24 people.
Mhm.
I think that's a good number, but at the same time, for me at least, like that's what I observed about Bali, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that as well.
Yeah, for sure. There were still many opportunities to connect. I think a lot of it was just the individuals that chose to come on the trip. I think it is the way that it was structured and all of us coming together, obviously, as we do for retreats during mealtime and during excursions and that sort of thing. So people are forming connections and, coming together in smaller groups. And then that's shifting throughout the experience. So I'm curious if you have any tips for what helps you to stay organized, manage all of those components, whether it's the contracts, the financials, the CEs, all the pieces logistically that come along with the planning process and sometimes even the during and after the fact.
Um, at this time, I'm doing all of that by myself. I, but that would be another growth area for me for sure. Like I'm still working on finding that person that I can trust, right? So that's like and I know that they'll care enough about like this retreat, so that it's important for them to do a great job. And I think that has been really hard for me to let go of like really like any of like the things that I do need to do for retreats, whether it's picking a destination or handling the administrative task or anything, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on um, behind the scenes that I don't think people realize, but it's a lot. And I think people see, like the retreat organizer or host or leader, and it seems like a a great thing to do, and it is, believe me, I enjoy it. But I think once people start organizing their own retreats, a lot of people step back because they're like, this is a lot of work. There's a lot of back and forth, especially once people start registering or signing up. um, there's a lot of questions that are getting asked. And I mean, yes, I could develop like a FAQ, frequently asked questions, but it still doesn't answer all the questions, right? So
Right.
I
It's going to be
think,
so specific per destination.
mhm.
And yeah, I can see that. Oh, well, clearly you're doing a lot right. And this is obviously something that, is going to continue and has been very well received. And coming from someone who has now had the opportunity to experience this, if anybody out there is on the fence and considering something like this, by all means, definitely join the Facebook group. So what is the title? How would they find it?
Wellness Counseling Inc. Retreats, I believe that's what I have it
I'll
called.
make sure to link it to make it easy. And then you have that as a tab on your website. So all of
I
the
do.
therapists are listed on there as well. So what is the web address?
So that one is wellnesscounselinginc.com. So it's a little bit easier to remember. And then you can just go to the Therapy Retreats tab, and then you can see all the past and upcoming retreats. And I like to make these retreats as accessible as possible. And so the way people have really appreciated the monthly payment plans. So after a deposit is paid, then, like the payment, monthly payment arrangements has worked well for the majority of the people. So
Awesome.
that's it.
Is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners with?
No, I just want to, just point out, like, if you have any ideas or dreams or goals for yourself, right, to be able to diversify your income, like, don't be scared of just trying and doing it. And if it is successful, great. But if it doesn't, just don't give up. Try something else, or try to tweak just the process that you started off with. Changing up a little bit can go a long way.
Well, I'm really glad that you did. So thank you so much for the experience and all the effort that you put in to make these retreats so incredible, and for your time today and everything that you shared with the audience. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Julia.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.